We're back, people, and today we're bringing a film on Darren Waller, Miami Dolphins tight end. And I think we got to see like the high end value that he could end up bringing for this team in his first action here versus the Jets. Obviously, the red zone stuff is hugely helpful, just giving a bigger body target that Tua can work with down in that red area. And that was kind of, I think, the obvious way that he could make an impact for a lot of people. But I think there were some other ways, winning on third down, getting open versus man coverage. There was maybe some vertical shots that we could maybe see in the future. I think that's something future we could potentially see. I think also his ability to be isolated, like to the single receiver side, is like an X and go against the team's number one corner is very, very helpful just in terms of like where you can align your other receivers, things like that. Get open versus zone. I think once him into a even build more of a connection that can be helpful. But yeah, I think Waller did a lot of things that I really like, and I think for me, this would have been like, oh, this would have been what he's going to do all season long for you. But now with the Tyreek injury, I actually think his role is going to expand a little bit and be even used more as receiver because he is pretty much just a receiver for you. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him play even more just because of that Reek injury and get used more as an actual weapon. But we'll start with the red zone stuff. Getting open like this versus Sauce and really your first action, like off rip here, flying off the ball. Love how he doesn't really waste any time. Just attack outside leverage of Sauce right here. Like he's taking this slight outside angle. And I love how he kind of just flies off the ball, eats up that cushion real quickly, engages with Sauce because he knows like if he has that type of momentum with his size and body, like he looked more explosive than I expected, which is great. I thought he could bring this value, but to look this explosive is really nice. Create that separation for Sauce, work through. So like he's a guy that I'm like, man, I could see him drawing some penalties in these situations if he doesn't come down with them, just kind of how physical he's playing. And then going up high catch radius, Tua is allowed to put that ball up in the back of the end zone. Like pretty much no one else on the roster even has a chance to make this catch other than maybe like Nick Westbrook-Akine. But like Waller's built for this stuff. Go up, get it. And then also the ability to get that second foot inbound is crazy. Great situational and field awareness there to get that foot in bounds and do that on fourth down, like pretty much your second target on second target in pretty much 2 years of playing football. Doing it against Sauce Gardner, who's one of the better corners in the league, I mean, doesn't get much better than that. So you got to give Waller so much credit. I think people we're calling the OBJ and the Will Fullers, and I'm like, we got to be a little bit patient with that. We don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I expect much from him, but I do think he could still play a role if they're able to, get in those spots. And they got in those spots early, and they were able to get him what they wanted. And Tua and Waller showed that nice chemistry, which was helpful. Dolphins also started using a lot of play action boot in this game, which is able to get Waller going across the field. He is definitely your best receiving threat at tight end. You get to see him actually, he's in line on the line of scrimmage. You're not going to see much of this. He's mostly going to be like a big slot receiver. He's one of the tight ends in the league that doesn't even have to play as like a slot. He can literally play outside line of versus team number one. But this is another way, working across the field. And it's just a big target, really friendly for a QB to throw to. Working across there and has the speed to pull away, on these crossers like this. So that's really nice. And then get into the end zone. Good work there. His second touchdown. This was his first target, and exactly what you want to see from the Dolphins, and something that he's going to have to do, I think, even more of, because I think the red zone stuff was going to be there no matter what. But with Tyreek out, he's going to have to take more of these like third down responsibilities. And if you're facing man like this, they're playing too high. They're clearly trying to stop things over the top there. Like Waddle's, got basically getting double teamed here. So you get Waller just across the middle versus a corner, and he just gets open by just being more physical. And it's not even OPI. Like he just runs up in there, eats up space, and he's just so physical through contact. And like that guy could potentially, and like maybe even get illegal contact in certain situations. Like they could potentially call it. Just creates separation, and then also just an easy target for Tua. Tua always has to be like very precise and accurate because he does have, you look at, Hill, Waddle, Malik, they're all very small targets. So creating some of those throws down the field, it can be difficult at times, but Waller gives him a pretty easy target to work with. And just fits I think the system pretty nicely from this perspective. He's not a crazy yak guy, but we'll do a little bit more than like say Gesicki was. Definitely someone I could see fitting. And then this is something I think we could see more of. A vertical threat, maybe as a seam guy, get him some seam work, some vertical shots if maybe he's isolated. Obviously, you get the nice look to Waddle here, but like Waller versus a corner, like he actually I think creates enough vertical separation here. Like if Tua needed to throw this ball to this side, like and he throws that ball pretty nice, like you give Waller a chance, he could come back to it. You could hit him in stride, like he's got the speed to do it. So that vertical stretch from maybe the tight end position wasn't something the Dolphins really had through the first 3 weeks. That's another. It's not something they really had. Like even when Jonnu was here, that wasn't really Jonnu's strength either. Jonnu and Waller are actually very different receiving tight end options, but they are the two I think types that can fit with what Tua is trying to do. I think last year Johnny was clearly the option, that, especially when they were working underneath. But I think Waller, with them looking to push the ball down the field a bit more, win on third down, stuff like that, in the red zone, that's kind of what you're going to get out of Waller, being a situational player that I think is going to play even more often. Um, Here, down in the red zone, probably could have even got a target here. I don't mind this throw from Tua. Like, it just gets knocked down at the line. He's throwing Waddle one-on-one. Like, I don't mind that at all. I would take Waddle one-on-one all the time, too. But if he did look to this side, like, Waller potentially open over the middle, hit him in stride there, probably get him a touchdown. I don't even think they didn't even really guard Malik. Actually, I think they had a miscommunication there. But yeah, Waller just there's some more potential even for more red zone work, which is nice because the Dolphins have actually been surprisingly good at third down this season. Been very efficient. I think the red zone area, if they can really just elevate that, which it seems like Waller does bring an elevation there, that's extremely helpful. So hopefully that can continue and stuff like this. I know he doesn't really get open here versus Sauce Gardner, but the fact that you can leave him isolated over here to one side, like I know he's tight, he's basically playing as a tight end, but usually when this happens, sometimes like the best corner might bump to the other side of the field and go to the receiver side where you have Waddle and Tyreek in the slot, and got Malik out here. It just allows, I think, for more flexibility with the other receivers having a tight end like Waller, because if it's like this, having like say Julian Hill or Tanner Conner over here, they're not even going to really pay attention to that. They're not even going to put someone on him that uh, one of your worst DBs to go on that guy. But with Waller, it's going to end up being Sauce, and that leaves an option to go to Tyreek to the other side of the field, open to convert a third down. I like this. He also could even align a little bit wider. We'll see that. It just gives you, I think, it also helps other plays. Like right here, one-on-one on the outside versus Sauce. Like this is man-to-man. Like this is cover 2-man. Teams in other situations might move their best corner, who usually plays out to the inside, just to play on Tyreek. But they end up leaving Sauce on Waller because they're threatened by him, and it gets Tyreek this nice option versus the nickel, and he gets open to convert there. That's another value that Waller is at least showing, because I'm like, I don't know if in another world I would have seen Sauce. Like, say this was Tanner Conner higher, I don't think Sauce would have stayed aligned on him. If it was Julian Hill, he definitely wouldn't have been aligned. But with Waller, I think they felt comfortable with that, and it just leaves some ISOs on other parts of the field that they can work with. I know, Tyreek's injured now, so that kind of changes some things up, but he's going to potentially, I think Waller being out there should help Waddle, or Waddle maybe ends up seeing double teams, and that could free up Waller in certain situations. But if you're able to use Waller like that, it should at least be a little flexible with the other best receivers, moving, in the future, moving guys like Waddle to the slot maybe a little more often just to give them good looks. Here was his other target. Didn't end up connecting. I think Tua kind of missed him. Maybe he expected a different angle from Waller, but I think Tua just floats this one over. But this is another area where I'm like, hey, it doesn't end up working here, but I'm like, oh, this is, it doesn't have to be him just getting open versus man to man, like versus zone, kind of get into this soft spot, and then just Tua overthrows him here, but like if he just throws it up, he might be able to make a tough catch in space too to convert. These are areas where you're going to see Waller make his potential impact. Like he was open there. I think this is Tua didn't have too many misses in this game, but this is definitely one of them. But these are things I think Waller kind of brings to the team, and he's doing all of this on very limited snaps. He played like 17 snaps. Like that's nothing. And I got all these plays to show in just 17 snaps. Like that's a very high value game from Waller. Had an excellent debut. He's not going to catch touchdowns every game, but like there is clearly some value there, and he's going to have to be even more involved now, especially with that Tyreek injury. Guys like Waddle clearly going to have to step up. Malik's probably going to get the ball more. Guys like Taj Washington are probably going to have to get involved as someone who can get open versus man. And then Waller didn't do too much blocking. We didn't really play an in line, but here he's tight enough to this where he actually gets a body on a DB. I do think he is someone that can block DBs. Like, I don't think he's going to be an inline blocker, block a defensive end. That's not really his game. But he isn't the worst blocking. Like he's a receiver. but he's not the worst blocker in the world for basically being a big body receiver. But it's just not his game. But I do think like, hey, if you need him to block a DB out there here on the backside, get a body on someone, maybe block a DB out in space on a screen. I think he can do it at least, decent enough to maybe, make somewhat of an impact there. I just want to throw that in there because, at least show a clip of him blocking because that was pretty much it. But really, his impact comes on being able to win on some one-on-ones, use his physicality, give the quarterback a much easier target down in the red zone. And hopefully, they can build off of this. Uh, just continue to build that chemistry, get on the same page in other spots. Because clearly they had that chemistry. I think going versus man. I think maybe versus zone is where things be a little more difficult. You got to be able to be on the exact same page in soft spots and stuff. But there's definitely a lot to work there with Waller. So I give him a ton of credit for what he was able to do. I'm excited to see this offense in the future with him. I'm excited to see Waddle as the wide receiver one. You know how I've felt about Waddle. I think Waddle can take that over and be that guy with that opportunity. He hasn't really had that. He's only had one opportunity like that since Tyreek has been here, and that was that Jets game from I think 2 years ago now, where Waddle, it was the only time Tyreek hasn't played in them pretty much in that McDaniel era. It was like the one game, and Waddle got to show out like just overtime what he could do. So it would be interesting to see a full season of that. So I'm at least excited for that a little bit. I'm sure we'll see like maybe Achan more as a receiver at least a little bit. I think with that you're probably gonna see like Malik get more touches in terms of like carries, Ollie Gordon more carries. It kind of just opens things up. And I think Taj is like the guy that I know they signed Cedric Wilson, but I think Taj will be the guy that ends up actually becoming active and will get some snaps out there. Him and Eskridge. I think Taj is just more the he's probably one of your better receivers at beating man coverage. And when you lose a guy like Tyreek, you're going to need someone like that to step up. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.